For those that don't know about the history of the truck routes in the city, some of these streets, these are residential streets. And until we succeeded with getting the truck route restrictions back in October with the city of Detroit, we were having 1,200 semi trucks going down every single day, a residential street.
Welcome to Pathbreakers, a podcast from the Kresge Foundation.
On each episode, we explore who has the power to shape a city. We're talking with changemakers and city leaders who are tackling big problems in unexpected ways.
We'll learn more about the path-breaking work that they do, get into the nitty-gritty of how they get it done, and get some lessons from their playbook that you can implement in your own city. Hi, I'm Tracy Pearson, and I work on the communications team at the Kresge Foundation.
And I'm Tracy's co-host, Jamie Bennett. I work at the intersection of arts, culture, and equitable community development.
So Jamie, today we are talking to Simone Sagovac, Project Director at the Southwest Detroit Community Benefits Coalition.
That's right. But before we kick off today's episode, we want to do a little bit of a quick history lesson for those of you like me who are not from Detroit. So what you need to know is that Southwest Detroit has been home to the Ambassador Bridge since the 1920s. This bridge connects Detroit to Canada, and while I get excited about that because I think Tracy might actually come up and visit this summer, the bridge doesn't just carry tourists and commuters. It funnels tens of thousands of semi-trucks every day, not just over the bridge, but through the neighborhood on the way to the bridge. This means big trucks in the neighborhood streets all day, all night, spewing exhaust, and illegally using residential streets as shortcuts as they come and go from their warehouses.
Yes, that's right. And in 2008, a federal study determined that Detroit needed a second bridge connecting to Canada, and they decided to put it in nearby Delray.
Mm.
The new bridge is going to further expand truck traffic in the neighborhood. And I'm sure you can only imagine what this will do to the traffic and air pollution in a neighborhood that is already dealing with issues of not being able to sleep because of the noise, of the vibration. Children aren't allowed to play outside. Windows vibrates. I mean, people's homes, the foundations of their homes have literally cracked. And so many people have asthma from all of the soot and pollution that asthma rates for children living closest to the truck routes are double those from elsewhere across the city. And for seniors, they're triple.
And this is exactly what Simone and the Southwest Detroit Community Benefits Coalition have been fighting for almost 20 years now.
That's right. So as we get ready to welcome Simone, I want to really point out here that what Simone and the Community Benefits Coalition has done is truly exceptional. They were able to form a coalition basically the moment the new bridge was announced in 2008. And then over the last 2 decades, they have compiled incredible community collected data and insisted that that data not be ignored.
Mm.
As a result, the coalition got not one, but 2 countries, 2 federal governments to agree, both the U.S. and Canada, to sign legally binding community benefits agreements with the construction of that new bridge. That is no small feat.
Yeah. And now we're at the moment where we're going to have the rubber actually hit the road. After 17 years, the new bridge is scheduled to open any day now. And it's time to see what's really going to happen and what the true impacts are going to be on this community.
Let's welcome Simone.
Simone, it's great to see you today.
Yes, welcome,
Thank
Simone.
you. Good to be here.
So, Simone, will you just tell our viewers, our listeners, where are you sitting right now? Where are you calling in from?
Sure. I am sitting in the Love Building on Grand River and Warren.
That's right, west side of Detroit. You've lived in Southwest Detroit for a little while now. How would you describe that area?
Southwest Detroit is very special. I know all of Detroit is special. Southwest Detroit, vibrant, huge blend of cultures, lots of rich immigrant history, and a space that so many people just feel like family. And I'm sure that happens all around the city, but there's a certain Southwest Detroit vibe and a big allegiance to that space.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about a neighborhood in Southwest Detroit, and that is Delray. Delray has a lot of heavy industry like coal and steel and processing, but there are also a lot of families and young people and our elders that call that neighborhood home. Can you briefly describe the neighborhood in those terms too? Like what, from an industrial perspective, what are people living there experiencing and seeing?
Southwest Detroit, the history is really a legacy of intertwined industry with residents. And
Mm.
so we're dealing with some legacy zoning where we used to have auto plants that dotted the community, and then those left and have been replaced by other industries. And because Detroit was founded on the riverfront, on the Detroit River, there's a lot of industry historically that is needed to locate near water. And so that's why you have the biggest, heaviest industries concentrated here still to this day,
Mm.
in the state of Michigan. And as you said, coal, industries that use coal, the steel mills, you've got the energy company, DTE, you have just different industries that are still all clustered in one place. Even our wastewater treatment plant, these are all the things that people contend with. And residents know very well the smells that are in the air. They can
Mm-hmm.
tell you where
Mhm.
that smell is coming from. If it's the wastewater treatment plant or if it's the refinery or something else, we're really used to it. So it's something that people contend with, and it becomes the norm. And it's taxing in lots of ways.
Now you say we can tell. You're one of those residents that lives not far from the bridge, right? I know we said Southwest Detroit, but about how
Mhm.
far are you from all of everything that's sort of taking place here?
I'm a couple blocks from the entrance of the current bridge to Canada and a couple miles from where the new bridge will be.
Hmm.
However, everyone is near a truck route in Southwest Detroit. Not far. I'm right a couple blocks up from I-75.
That is wild to say. Everyone is near a truck route. That's crazy.
And Simone, how long have you been there? How long have you been in that neighborhood?
Since 1991.
That's
Actually,
amazing.
1991, right before the first U.S. Canada trade agreement, and then the free
Mm-hmm.
trade agreement happened after that. And the big story for me was the cheapest, fastest place for me to go to a movie was to cross the bridge and go to Canada and to Windsor.
Oh,
And
that's
as soon as
awesome.
those trade agreements passed, all the trucks started coming, and that was everybody's experience. We used to go eat dinner in Windsor, downtown Windsor, and it just stopped because it was too hard to contend with the trucks.
Well, I think a lot of us, I think, can picture what it means to live near a truck route, to live near a big bridge. But this is a bridge that's been planned and being constructed for 17 years now. I mean, this has been a long time coming. What has that construction disruption done to the neighborhood? What's it been like while they're getting ready to build and open this bridge?
People have talked about the worst dust that they've ever experienced in their lives. And, it's sad because, well, I heard a lot of the complaints and tried to encourage people to use the call-in lines for
Mm.
those things. I think people would feel oftentimes that, things weren't going to get responded to. And frankly, when you have a 168-acre construction site, it's enormous. And when you peel off all the vegetation from it, it's really, how do you suppress that dust? How do you suppress that dirt? Much of it legacy, industrial dirt. So we've seen lots of head congestion, migraine headaches, asthma increase, inability to play outside, so much dust on these truck routes. And for those that don't know about the history of the truck routes in the city, some of these streets, these are residential streets. And until we succeeded with getting the truck route restrictions back in October with the city of Detroit, we were having 1,200 semi-trucks going down every single day. A residential street that had no business having them. They were just cut throughs for the truck traffic. So it's been, 6 now years of continuous construction. So there's, the usual congestion things that you have to deal with. But I would say that the biggest one really was people contending with the dust.
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, 1,200. That's like 500 trucks every hour. Oh, Simone. All right, but here's the thing I have to ask. So we've been describing a lot of problems, right? The clouds of dust, the trucks, all this stuff. But you're at something called the Southwest Detroit Community Benefits Coalition.
Mhm.
Where do the benefits come in? What is a community benefits agreement? Just help us orient to the sort of forward-looking, the sort of, what might actually come out of this.
Mhm.
Sure. Well, we didn't originate the idea. I'll just say that
Yeah.
the thing called community benefits agreements was something that people, a lot of labor folks were doing, working with community on the West Coast for since the 90s. But it was sort of like known that we were going to need something outside of the federal agreement because the federal agreement wasn't stating that it was going to protect the neighborhood or protect the people in the way that we knew that was needed.
And wait, just Simone, hold on for a second. What is the federal agreement was an agreement between who about what?
The agreement, what the Federal Environmental Impact Study,
Mhm.
which started in 2004, ended in 2008, and that was when the final study revealed that they were, that it was okay to move forward environmentally speaking. That agreement was between the federal governments of the U.S. and Canada, the state government of Michigan, the provincial government of Ontario. Yeah, it was a multi-government agreement. And that's typical for a large infrastructure project like this, which actually it is the largest infrastructure project in 100 years.
Wow.
And it was Canada's #1 project. So there's lots of history here that we can't get into in this program, but a community benefits agreement is essentially just a contract outside of you and I could have a benefits agreement. It's just a contract outside of a process where you're trying to get something that you're not already getting. And so in many cases, they are looking for environmental, labor, and neighborhood improvements. And that's what we were seeking. So we formed this coalition 2008. Learning from what other community benefits programs had done in the past, we called for a local election. We asked residents to run, and we have a community elected board, and we set it up so that it represented the exact geography of where the impacts were going to happen. And we worked with the the law school out at University of Michigan. And just to say that, dropping my name as far as, yes, I've been involved in this project for all these years, but there have been hundreds of people and organizations. This truly has been a giant effort to get us to this where we are today with the benefits programs.
And how do you all determine who's a part of the coalition and who gets a seat at that really important table?
It really emanates from electing a community board, and the board decided, who had their backs. And so we would invite people to the table, and it was election, and people would, say who they were and what they represent. And at the time that we actually had the community benefits agreements with the Mayor Duggan's administration, and that's when the agreements happened in 2017. At that time, we had developed something called the Community Advisory Group. We knew that we needed to pull in bigger voices than the residents and the community representatives that were very local. And so we formed a Community Advisory Group, and that included our state representative at the time and others like that, and a city representative and businesses. And the criteria there, those people were picked by the community, by that board, and they decided.
Well, Simone, one of the things that's really striking to me is that the coalition came together in 2008, essentially right as the new bridge was being announced. And my experience working in community is that the community often comes together a little bit too late in the process, right? The government's already decided what's going to happen. The project's already in motion. But you all were there from jump. And what's been possible, because you've been sort of, at the same time they've been working on the bridge, you all have been organizing the community and working on your needs. Can you just talk a little bit about that timing?
Yeah, it didn't come out of thin air. Our representative at this time, Representative Steve Tabachman, who's a Southwest Detroit resident, was at the time, he had been engaged with the official bridge process. So the state of Michigan engaged people for 4 years before we formed our coalition. And it was at the time when the study finally came out, after they were done with the usual, engagement, that our state rep recognized that the community was not being fully taken care of. And he was aware of these community benefits agreements and brought the idea, to us. Again, we weren't the first ones. And so it was from that point that we did some community education and moved the whole process forward and said, we need to have a group and we need to have an election to have the right group. And that was how it started.
So I think that's kind of extraordinary that he was there and was able to sort of be one of the folks who helped get this together so quickly. But what was possible because you were there and organizing that early in the process? What have all of you been able to do?
Well, most of this and everything that we really were able to do over time has to do with relationships. So being in it for so long, you have relationships with people and you're looking for relationships with people. And what we were able to do is make the case with the community data that we gathered, with the public health experts that we brought in, with the organizing that we did before we got to the point of sitting down at the table. We had postcard campaigns, we had call-in campaigns, we had bus trips of legislators from Lansing, Republican and Democrat, kind of visit before you vote, see the community for yourselves before you make a decision. We did all of these things. And so we became a serious voice. And also Southwest Detroit has some very well-established organizations who meet a lot of the community's needs and have a great reputation, incredible trust of the community. and filling in gaps that weren't provided by the city over decades. So just a very strong network of community organizations. These have always been our partners. We've worked together, locked arms. These are the people that came out to Lansing. These are the people who came to city council meetings and spoke at public comments, helped us to get resolutions passed. And all this stuff together led us to the point of, and touring, I should say, we've done numerous tours of all the decision makers. We toured Mayor Duggan when he first came into office on the U.S. side. We took him over onto the Canadian side, and we said, even though you want to say that the Canadian laws will apply on the Canadian side, the U.S. laws on the U.S. side, we took a fairness approach and said there needs to be equal treatment for everybody. And when people could see really what was going on, then they said, yes, we need to do this on the U.S. side too. And so that's how, and there's years of time that passed to do all that organizing. But by the time we got to the point of sitting down, we had the data, we had the information, we had the backing of the people.
And I
Amazing.
appreciate that you all armed yourselves with so much data, and especially that it was data collected by neighbors in the neighborhood. I want to ask you who's been out collecting that data, and how did you all get to the idea of we're going to let the people who live in the neighborhood or who are familiar with this area, familiar with what's going on, be the ones to collect that data?
Well, no one was collecting it for us, so we had to do that. So we started out with simple truck studies, and we reached out to, then it was SEMCOG that did the official truck studies, and we made sure that we were doing our counts in a way that would be taken seriously. And that was kind of a baseline for all of the data gathering that we did, is we wanted to know what the standards were for it so that we could take it to the bank. When we bought air monitors, we got some early grants and got some air monitors, and we made sure that we had ones that were going to give us some rigorous numbers. And when we worked with the University of Michigan faculty too, we made sure that air monitoring and a health study that we did with them could be something that would be analyzed by data analysts, that this information was usable and could be respected. And I would say from the community standpoint, the residents, they wanted their needs to be addressed. They wanted to be heard. And so when we did that truck count, we got 80 residents to take shifts, 2-hour shifts
Mm.
over 24 hours, 2 days, and did the first counts. Then when we did a health survey going door to door, we only offered a $5 stipend and held people at the door, held them, but they spent 45 minutes at the door with us
Wow.
telling us about their health. So that tells you how serious
Yeah.
people are about the impacts that they've been experiencing and wanting to share and wanting them to be addressed.
People often say that, all politics is local. I have come to believe that sort of all policy is local, right? Policy is enacted in real places with real people in real time. And you all over the last 17 years, 20 years, whatever it's been, have been working in the Southwest Detroit neighborhood, and you've learned a lot. And you're at a moment where you're beginning to take some of that knowledge and sort of share it with broader Detroit. And you're actually doing some citywide organizing work. Is that right?
That's right. And actually, I mean, the benefits of some of the policies have been citywide already. It stems back to, I think, 2009 or 10 may have been when the first anti-idling ordinance was passed.
Hmm.
Then we worked on a water body protection ordinance. We worked on the first dust ordinance when the piles on the riverfront were blowing some pet coke, and so that was in 2014. And then 10 years later, in 2024, we got a renewed dust ordinance, a much stronger one that actually allows the city, if there are repeat violators that don't clean up, they have to shut down. And then most recently, we got in October the truck route restrictions for Southwest Detroit. But a couple of years ago, we knew that this truck issue needed to be citywide. So we formed the Trucked Off the Streets Coalition. And that's where we've got representatives from each of the districts, grassroots organizations sitting at the table with us who are also experiencing truck issues. And it's as many strategies usually with the same goal. Sometimes it's zoning, it's land use planning, it's air quality issues, it's all kinds of things. Then, and we take it all in and grab any strategy we can to move forward.
So my question is, how do you sort of hold both what's going on in Southwest, but then also what's going on across the city that's also incredibly critical for residents?
Well, there are great people in every district in the city trying to do the work to make better quality of life for the residents, for their neighbors. And it wasn't hard to find people who also wanted to come together to do this work. And it's clear that it's going to take that. And you don't want to have to repeat the fight over and over and over
Right.
again with every single one. When you work on broader policies together, and you also get the city to realize that enforcement of policies that are on the books can go a long way to improve people's quality of life. And that's one of the things we're focusing on too now.
Simone, I've read that they put an estimate of like $48 million worth of benefits are going to be delivered because of the agreements that are put in place and what you're doing. What does that look like? What does that mean? Like, what makes up that $48 million worth of benefits?
Sure. And most of those have already been realized. So after the agreements happened in 2017, there were a couple of large programs that total over $30 million just for these couple programs. One was doing some windows and air filtration for homes along I-75 that would be facing the brunt of the traffic. Another program was for a home swap. And so residents in the Delray area and along the same corridor on I-75 could choose to swap their home out, give it to the city, and get a fully renovated land bank home somewhere else in the city. And that has been a big program. And then we got a long-term health study. So we did door-to-door health surveys with, again, the University of Michigan School of Public Health and residents, bilingual residents trained to do these studies. And that we did a baseline. So before bridge construction, we did a during construction. That one just wrapped up. And we're just about to kick off the post-bridge construction health impact assessment, which will be once the traffic is flowing and to see what the impacts on people actually are, what they're really feeling from that. So that's where and then the other was an air monitoring program. So we got 3 new state air monitoring stations put around the development. Some other things, we got a mobile van traversing Southwest Detroit with equipment with U of M staff. And we also have a home monitoring program with some indoor-outdoor monitors at a couple dozen homes scattered around the project area to learn what is really happening between the outside air and the inside health that people are experiencing. So that was the bulk of that 48. Then there was another $10 million after for a Delray home repair program. That delivered roofs and furnaces. And so it's just, we've been trying to build on from one thing to the next.
Speaking of building, it feels like you guys have built so much up that you are now sort of moving into a different phase of work from trying to secure the benefits, get the data to advocate for yourselves, but now you are in a position of making sure that folks make good on the things that you have outlined in these contracts and agreements. How are you feeling in this new era of work?
I think we are truly grateful for the benefits programs that have been delivered. The city set up a project or program department called Bridging Neighborhoods Program.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the beautiful things about that is that the staff that got trained and did the work for that project were able to then be employed on other community benefits programs throughout the city to do that work. And so we really love that the idea that home repairs are necessary, that they are truly the things that can deliver a better quality of life for people, that these are catching on at higher levels. We love to share the work and help people, do the same thing. Every fight is different. Every community benefit agreement is different, but there are some commonalities and we can learn from each other. And so, we're just really grateful for the other activists that we work with in the community. Activists are residents. I don't like calling, we're all active residents.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Simone, we don't want the amazing lessons and the amazing work that you've been doing to just live in Detroit. We also want to make sure that everyone from wherever they're listening or watching also can learn from what you all are doing. So Tracy and I have been trying to sort of compile a Pathbreakers playbook, getting advice that other communities can learn from you.
So they can go back and get it in the future.
That's right.
Sure. I love that idea.
So what's a piece of advice that someone gave you that you along the way find that you are living by in the work that you do?
So one is a personal piece of advice that I think also explains how the community feels, and which is where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
There isn't necessarily one path. Nobody hands you the playbook, and so, where there's a will, there's a way. And we had to make that way. New things were thrown at us all the time, and you just figure out, I think, making sure that you speak, that residents speak for themselves, and that you're always honest about where things are at.
It's amazing. Somewhere out there listening, there's a baby Simone. There's a young person who's going to grow up and do something as amazing as the $58 million of benefits that you've delivered. What does she need to know?
I think believing that if you think something isn't right and you can envision a way that it can be better, just hang on to that and keep putting one foot in front of the other. I think that there are all kinds of solutions out there for us to grab onto. Sure, there's a lot of things that push back at you. And I say, believe in the people. And one piece of advice I think that's always been important to us is looking for unlikely allies, watching for those. There are people, individuals, good-hearted people, minds that we touched and hearts that we touched. And I think it's the empathy building that gets us all to move forward together.
Well, Simone, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, truly thank you. Just a second to give you your flowers because what you have been able to accomplish is mighty, it is important, and it matters. And for residents in this city who sometimes don't have the time or the capacity because they are literally just trying to survive, they still need an advocate. They still need someone to stand up and fight for them. And you have done that. And your crew, y'all are shaking tables in all of the best way. So thank you so much.
And Simone, we've only touched, you've shared so much, and this is still only a smidgen of what the coalition does. So if people want to learn more and maybe even support the work that you all are doing, where can they go to get some more information?
I think both. Citywide, the Trucks Off Our Streets Coalition, look it up. We do have a website. You'll find information about that. We're holding, different events. And also the Southwest Detroit Community Benefits Coalition. We can hook you up with our background information, help you do some of the same things.
That's awesome. We'll make sure and put both of those links in the show notes for this episode. Simone, thank you so much for taking a little time and visiting with us.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much.
Pathbreakers is produced by the Kresge Foundation. Founded in 1924 with the mission to promote human progress, Kresge today works to expand equity and opportunity in America's cities.
Learn about our grant-making and social investing work in Detroit, Memphis, New Orleans, Fresno, and cities across the U.S. at kresge.org. To hear more stories from the Pathbreakers, be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Our producer, as always, is Juliette Heinley. Managing editor is Krista Yankee, with huge help from her Kresge colleagues, Maria DiLorenzo, Kate McLaughlin, Jordan Duckins, and of course, the one and only Tracy Pearson. The show art is by Alejandro Herrera. Logo animation by Colin Likes. Our social media mastermind is David Carrick.
And a special thank you on this episode to Kresge's Detroit program, including Wendy Lewis Jackson and Jonathan Way. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.